Good afternoon on this glorious day in Boston. A good Erev Shabbos as we get ready for Shabbos Parshas Tolos. So I'm not sure if some of you have been watching what's going on, but in the last 48 hours, there's been thousands of Gen Z generation people posting on TikTok the manifesto, the letter that Osama bin Laden wrote in 2002, trying to justify the killing and murdering of 3,000 innocent people on September 11. And these young, ignorant, foolish kids are trying to say that, now we understand where he's coming from. And, we understand that he was just trying to fight, the people that were ruling him and they were suppressing him and all this nonsense. And today I saw TikTok said that they're forbidding that letter from being shared on TikTok, etc., etc. And the truth is, I'm not surprised by these young kids. And actually, in a certain sense, I hate to say it, it's a validation. Because to me, the Torah taught us always that evil is evil. There's no justification for evil. There's no explanation of evil acts. There's no understanding evil. Evil has to be eradicated. The Torah tells us when it came to Amalek, you need to eradicate it. In this week's Torah portion, we read about Rebecca's two kids. She's pregnant, and when she goes by a place of Torah, a kid wants to push out, and then when she goes by the worshipping idols, Esau wants to go out, and she's confused. She says, I have one kid who doesn't know where he is. And she comes to the prophet, and what does the prophet say? Shnei goyim bevitnech. There's two kings, there's two kids in your womb. And suddenly she calms down. And what the Torah was really saying, and what Rebecca understood is, there's no way that you could embrace evil and good in one person. If you're evil, you're evil. If you're good, you're good. The moment you think that you could understand and sympathize with and rationalize evil and murder and killing, it might start with Hamas, it might start with Israel, but it's going to go to 9/11. It's going to go. The same people that are saying that Winston Churchill was a warmonger, the person who single-handedly saved Western civilization in the 20th. Winston Churchill, one of the greatest heroes of the 20th century, they call him a warmonger. They suddenly understand Osama bin Laden. But the Torah teaches us unequivocally that evil is evil. You don't rationalize it. It's not mixed with good. There's no understanding. If someone's evil, if someone kills, if someone butchers, you need to eradicate it. They need to stand squarely against it. And for all those people who think that, they're going to differentiate, they're going to criticize the people who are celebrating Osama bin Laden, and who are understanding him, and they're not going to criticize the people who sympathize with Hamas, are fools, and they're making the same mistake, because it's ultimately one and the same. The moment you justify murderers, terrorists, is the moment you yourself become evil. And that's why when Isaac wanted to bless Esau, and he was hoping that Esau is evil, Esau might not be good, but hopefully by giving the blessings, Esau will overcome himself. But Rebecca understood there's no way that you take this spirituality and this holiness and you channel it into someone who's evil. It's impossible that Esau should get those blessings. And that's what we have to understand. And in a certain sense, it's a validation, because we were shocked. October 7th came, and suddenly we see people celebrating murderers, baby killers, kidnappers. But today we see their true colors. They're suddenly supporting Osama bin Laden. And TikTok is making a differentiation. They're going to ban the manifesto, but they're going to allow you to praise Hamas. The West has to wake up and realize that if we don't teach unequivocally that terror is terror and evil is evil and murderers are murderers, then there's a danger for our future of our own society here in the West and here in America. But the truth is, I want to skip back for a minute to the rally on Tuesday, because ultimately what this thing has done is woken up the Jewish people in a way that we've never been woken up. And I want to tell you two stories. One that happened by the rally, and one that happened on October 7th. at the rally, the biggest rally of Jewish people in America, in the history of America, almost 300,000 people. And Chabad had hundreds of students and people like me going around trying to find people that want to wrap tefillin and do a mitzvah, because as much as you do something physical, you want to do something spiritual. And one of these guys from Crown Heights was there, and he went over to this guy who looked sad in the crowd, and he asked if he wanted to put on tefillin. And the guy says, no. Do you want to wrap? He says, no. He says, why do you look so sad? He says, well, because my father just passed away in Israel 2 days ago, and I couldn't even go because of the war. And suddenly it dawns on my friend that this guy is in the middle of Shiva. So he says, why don't you wrap tefillin in memory of your father? It's the mourning period. And the guy wraps tefillin, and then he realizes, 1 second, the guy never said Kaddish for his father. So right there, he grabs 15 teens from around. He says, pull on your hoodies. And the guy says a Kaddish. And then he realizes that he didn't have Shiva. So he asks them all to give him the mourner's comfort, and each one's hugging him and embracing him. And suddenly this guy, who felt so alone and didn't realize the unity and that he was part of the Jewish people, in that sense that we're all family, was suddenly embraced in a way that he could never imagine. But the second story is again about unity. It makes me think. You know, there's these two brothers, Noam and Yishai Slotsky. They lived in Beersheba. And on the morning of October 7th, they heard what happened, and they put on their uniforms. They weren't cold. There was no Tzav Shemona. They didn't have to go anywhere. And they started going towards the south. And their brother says, what are you doing? You have kids and you have a family. How could you do this? And they said, listen, they didn't want to hear. They just went. And the two brothers went and they fought near Kibbutz Be'eri. And at 10 o'clock they were shot, and both of them were killed. And they saved many people, and they gave their life for the country. Their father's a big rabbi. And at the funeral, he said, you know, it was interesting. One of the brothers was 31 and one was 24. One of them was observant, like the father, and one of them was not left observance. And he says, as a family, we had many discussions, and I always felt bad because we kept Shabbos, and we were so careful with our spirituality and Judaism, and I felt upset that my son didn't do the same. And then he says, what was my son's last act? My son's last act was that on Shabbos, the two brothers went and drove, knowing they were going into harm's way to bullets, to save other Jews. How silly was I not to realize the essence of Judaism in these boys? And he said, and he quoted what Rivka said in this week's Torah portion in Toldot, where she says, Lama eshkol shnechem biyomecha, why should I lose my two sons in one day? She said it about Jacob and Esau, and this guy lost his two kids in one day on October 7th. But it made him realize that sometimes what you see on the surface is not really who we are. And that's what we've seen since October 7th. And that's what we saw in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. The unity of the Jewish people. We woke up. Matisyahu came and he sang his song one day. And then I saw he did a little interview, and he said that when October 7th happened, he said to his wife, I want to cut my pony off. I want to put my yarmulke back on, my payas. I realized this is my essence. They woke up the lion. We might have been sleeping, but now we're not sleeping anymore. So my friends, we got to be strong. We got to recognize that evil is evil. There's never justification. And the same people who justify Hamas justify Osama bin Laden. And hopefully we could speak up loud and clear and educate and nurture with love the teachings that the Torah teaches us about this. Have a Shabbat Shalom, and we all be strong and get stronger.